Hello there. Welcome to Progressive Political Perspectives. My name is James Curtis Carey, and I'm a political, I'm an activist with the Democratic Party, and I will read you the program's mission statement at this time. To create an oasis in a political desert that actually touches people's lives. Progressive Political Perspectives discusses issues that are ripe for conversation and make a difference. We strive to unite our base, traditional, progressive, and Democratic voters, and build an audience. We want to reach the disaffected, the young, females, and those who feel they have no voice. In short, we seek to expand the core. And with me today is my co-host, Audrey Davis, and we're pleased to bring onto the program our Allen County Democratic candidate for County Sheriff, Kevin Hunter.
It's good to be here, Curtis. Thank you for that introduction, and
Yeah,
good to see you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you both for having me today. I'm really excited about this.
Yes, us too. So here we are a few days out from the 2022 election, which you have been coloring and making vibrant with your candidacy.
Thank you.
Yes, and you know, I'm myself a 10-year of campaign, or actually community organizing, as you know. We've had a lot of interaction over the last 10 years, and I can always remember that Kevin was never afraid to be the first to think of a bold idea and to actually support the needs and the voice of the community. So I'm very thankful to be interviewing you today. We're going to go ahead and get a sense of Kevin's story a little bit, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the jail and your vision around changing that conversation. And then we're going to talk a little bit about like what's left in these next few days before you're voted into office, hopefully.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your story, Kevin. What was it like for you growing up, and where did you grow up?
So I grew up here in Fort Wayne on the southeast side of town. I attended Village Woods Elementary, Village Woods Middle School, and then Paul Harding High School. I graduated in 1981, and my first real job was at Scott's Grocery on Decatur Road. I worked there for 8 years before I got onto the Fort Wayne Police Department full time. Wow. So yeah, I'm not born here in Fort Wayne, but raised here, and it was a great experience.
Wow. And how was it for you to come to the conclusion, as you know, somebody working at Scott's and trying to piece together what you wanted to do for your life? How was it for you to decide that you wanted to be a law enforcement? How did that come about?
Well, so even just as a little boy, I discovered I just love playing cops and robbers. So that was just always my goal, is to become a police officer and go out and help people. I actually joined the Fort Wayne Student Police at an early age when I was a teenager, and then joined the Fort Wayne Police Reserves as a volunteer and went through all the training for a police officer. So I was a reserve for 2 years and then got hired full time, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, because now you've been in the front lines for about what, 28 years?
33.
33 years.
Yes.
Wow. So thank you for all of your service.
Thank you.
And just to linger a little bit more on that, before you decided to run, when you were in, the work of being day-to-day, well, and I can't even remember your full bio, but being in charge of the forensic
For Vice Narcotics?
Vice Narcotics
Yes.
unit. When you think about the things that shaped you to continue to drive you in that work, that's often unseen and sometimes very criticized, by a lot of the people that I'm used to working with, for example. What was your hardest day on the force that colored how you do things?
Well, one of the hardest days that I've had is just talking to parents who have lost a child to an overdose. That never gets easier. It's always difficult. It's always painful. And one thing that I've learned over the last 10 years from working in Vice Narcotics is we cannot arrest our way out of this issue. It's just not physically possible. So early on when I was in narcotics, I connected with people in the treatment service to talk to my detectives about, look, what is addiction? Let's educate ourselves on what addiction is so that we can actually maybe make some changes to help people who have substance use disorder that need treatment and not jail, and let's figure that out. So one of the very first trainings that we did, I had someone from Fort Wayne Recovery come in and educate all of us about what is addiction and what does that mean. And as a result of that training, one of my detectives went out and followed up on an overdose and actually connected that person to treatment services the next day. And that person is now an advocate for Fort Wayne Recovery and has been doing awesome work. And as a result, basically that interaction saved his life.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And I don't hesitate to know that the work you've done in changing culture and thinking about the bigger pictures has shaped the police force a lot, and I think will hopefully shape the other body that handles law enforcement in our region, which is the county sheriff's department. What was it for you that made you decide to run for office?
Well, I went to a conference sponsored by the Indiana Attorney General a few years ago, and he had several sheriffs come in who talked about these new programs called the jail chemical addictions programs. So not only did the sheriff talk about them, but he brought people who had been through the program and talked about how that program changed their lives, got them into sobriety, and then basically turned their lives around. And these people are doing very well now, and they're not out using drugs, they're not out committing crimes, and in the long run, that's saving taxpayers money as well. So the recidivism rate has gone down for counties that have these programs, and that is, well, it's two goals: to save money and to help people get their lives back.
Amen. Amen. So that was what made you decide to run.
Yes.
Because didn't you also kind of appeal to the current sheriff's department and say that this would be a great program and got denied?
Yes. So people in the Fort Wayne Allen County Task Force for Opioid Strategic Planning went to the current sheriff and said, hey, here are these great programs. Is there any way we could start one here? And the current sheriff said, there's no way. We can't do it. It's not possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, that old school mentality of rigidity and calcification, not wanting to change when there's a feasible path that's going to help people's lives.
It's proven.
Right. And I think that that indicates to me that you're also familiar with rejection.
Absolutely.
And in a race that you're running where you're kind of helping people arise to their highest selves in a county that's used to telling them who they are and where they should vote and how they should vote, it means that you've probably already faced a lot of rejection in changing people's habits and helping people think bigger.
Yes.
Can you tell us about one of maybe the biggest moments on the doors that you've had so far, how you've single-handedly or how your campaign has begun to help people realize that they don't have to stay inside of the current social imagination, that they could have a bigger social imagination?
Yes. So I was out canvassing one day in New Haven, and I knocked on a door of a woman. We had a great conversation. I told her my platform, that I want to create a robust jail chemical addiction program because we can't arrest our way out of this issue, and that really touched her. She told me, I have always voted Republican, but I will tell you, you have my vote.
Wow.
And that was meaningful.
Amen. And I'm sure that those are happening more and more frequently. I'm just here as a strong advocate for people to realize that even though a county-wide vote as a Democrat seems like almost a pie-in-the-sky desire, this could be the year that we change that paradigm.
Yes.
And I think Kevin's campaign could be one of the first that we start to build a bigger imagination and stop letting people tell us who we are as a
Yes.
county. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Curtis ask you some questions about our jail.
Okay.
Indeed, Kevin's candidacy has already altered the political landscape. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you to elaborate somewhat on your ideas for a comprehensive review or survey of Allen County government with respect to law enforcement. Would such a review potentially facilitate reform to enable said sectors of our county government to more efficiently collaborate, coordinate, and definitely communicate?
Absolutely, Curtis. So that is the one issue right now, is that the county commissioners or the current sheriff have not done a comprehensive needs assessment of what our entire criminal justice system is going forward, to see what kind of jail that we need. That hasn't been done. So by creating by paying for a commission to do that study on needs assessment will really help us going forward to see what our needs are over the entire criminal justice system. So all the police agencies that impact the jail, the probation departments, the courts, home detention, and all the others, let's take a look at what it looks like for us going forward. I already have a meeting set up with an organization that does needs assessments. So when I get elected January 1st, I can hit the ground running.
Would that include that group of people you mentioned, the public defenders?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So I'm going to ask you some particular questions at
Sure.
this time. For instance, given that the Allen County Jail holds felons as well as suspects awaiting trial held for misdemeanors, how do you feel about removing nonviolent offenders from the Allen County Jail and relocating them to a different facility where they would be supervised and properly accounted for?
Well, so what I understand, that currently there are about a third of the people that are in the Allen County Jail are awaiting trial, have not been convicted of anything, and may be not violent felons. So let's figure out a way to do something different with them. Let's work with the court system. Let's work with the bail bonds commissioners. Let's figure out a way that we can get those people out of the jail so that we're not overcrowded.
A kind of supervised halfway house,
Yes,
perhaps?
something along those lines.
Yeah, great. So could county council take specific steps to target funding towards alleviating long-standing, ongoing endemic deficiencies in Allen County Jail inmate nutrition, exercise, and medical care?
Well, so the Allen County Commissioners oversee the facility itself. The sheriff manages the facility and the people in it, and then county council has the purse strings. So by working and having a good relationship with the commissioners and the county council, that would be a good step going forward. Making sure that we're applying for grants that would address these issues. Currently, there's grants available through the Indiana Sheriff's Association for robust jail chemical addiction programs. Indiana Department of Mental Health and Addiction also have grant programs available. So reaching out and applying for all these grants to get money to come in to help with these issues would be one thing that I'd really work on when I get elected.
And presumably, our current Allen County authorities have not taken or done anything to substantially tap these resources, or at least apply for the grants?
To my knowledge, no.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Do you agree with Nelson Peters' assertion that all the Allen County commissioners can do with respect to law enforcement is build a new jail? Why or why not?
Well, again, it goes back to the needs assessment. We must have a needs assessment going forward to really see what we need, and that has not been done. So, and why that hasn't been done, I'm not sure, but that would be one thing that I would hopefully convince the commissioners and county council that, look, this is what we need going forward, and we need to figure out what the needs of the entire criminal justice system are, so that, you know, what do we need in a jail, and how big of a jail do we need?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So, and so therefore, incarceration, just that alone and of itself, does not solve the problem. Or
No.
Yeah.
And if we build a bigger jail, all of these other issues are still going to be there. So addressing all of these issues, mental health with inmates, substance use disorder with inmates, and the understaffing and inhumane treatment or inhumane conditions, those issues will still be there unless we address those.
I have a question too about that, Curtis.
Yes.
When you were mentioning how important it's going to be to use your position to work within the entire spectrum of who controls these questions and who needs to collaborate to
Yes.
find solutions. That's something that very much appeals to me, because I think that people who run for a certain office in our, maybe what worked in the 80s or the 90s is to just think of that role and the various things that you can control in that role. But what I think the governing capacity of the future is calling for is for people to be collaborative across difference. And that's definitely a characteristic that we are longing for in a sheriff, because we know currently that's not what's taking place. But I'm interested to think about, too, knowing the ARPA funds of our county that have sat untapped and that need to be distributed and used by the end of next year. What would you do as the sheriff to be able to start to have a conversation around how those funds could be used to improve people's lives, especially after what you've mentioned in your previous debates about how much mental illness is on the rise post-COVID?
Yes.
Which also opens people up for vices and for self-soothing. What do you think those funds could go towards, and how would you try to build that consensus?
Well, one option would be, let's maybe think about creating a separate facility for people with mental health issues and substance use disorder issues. Instead of housing them with other inmates, let's separate them, and let's make sure that we're giving them the treatment that they need, and make sure that people with mental health issues are getting the medication that they're currently on, so that they don't decompensate if they're given some other generic medication, because the jail doesn't have those. I think that's huge.
Yeah, that's a huge issue of what's going on in the current jail. And what I remember being a question on your previous debate about the healthcare contract that exists.
Yes.
And your opponent was very defensive of that contract, saying that it was sufficient, when really there's so many stories and so much evidence that it's not. And so to hear that you would hope to actually stop the use of reclassifying people's medication in jail, which of course, once you become bipolar or schizophrenic or even severely depressed, if you're handed a more generic subscription just because that's what the jail has on hand, that can do permanent damage, and it can affect your behavior while you're incarcerated.
Absolutely. And then, if a person decompensates, that's going to be an issue not only for them, but for the confinement officers as well. And that's so unnecessary. Let's continue with that medication that is working to keep them safe and well. And in the end, that's going to help the whole system overall.
Amen, amen. Because we know those jail confinement officers are not in an easy job.
No.
So.
Kevin, could you please give our audience a brief overview of the principal duties of the Allen County Sheriff?
So the Allen County Sheriff, or a sheriff in the state of Indiana, has several responsibilities. The biggest one is managing the jail, making sure that everybody is safe in the jail. The second is serving processes such as warrants and other civil processes. Another issue is maintaining a sex offender registry, and then also making sure that the unincorporated areas of the county have police protection or police service. So those are some of the duties of the current sheriff. Oh, and keeping the courtroom safe as well. So protecting the judges and the juries and everybody in the court system.
Do you have a plan, or could you elaborate on how the staffing shortage might be alleviated?
One program that I'm going to incorporate when I get elected is create a recruiting team within the department that goes out into the community and recruits people that look like the community that we serve. That is going to be huge, not only just in this area, but hopefully nationwide as well, because we really need good, qualified people to work in the jail, and we need those people that look like the community we serve.
So I'm interested on that question too, because I also help with an effort called Help Not Handcuffs, which I know you've worked with in the past. And actually, Kevin was the first person to take our Help Not Handcuffs pledge, which was for no new jail on the southeast side, no new jail period. And then he also started to single-handedly reshape the conversation around the jail and call for a comprehensive study. So one of the things that we determined when we sat down with your opponent, Troy Hirschberger, he said that currently he's taken the role that was used to be the training officer of the sheriff's department and created him instead as a recruitment officer. So there's now 3 people in charge of recruitment for the sheriff's department, and there's no current training officer. So I would just encourage you to think about that too. And when you think about training that the sheriff's department would need, it's also been, rumored that the CIT program, the crisis intervention training, has kind of been gradually not prioritized within the sheriff's department, which is kind of like the only line of defense that our county law enforcement currently has for how we address calls that have to do with mental illness and domestic violence and such. I know the Fort Wayne Police Department has been much more robust about implementing that program. But how else would you think about training so that we can keep a culture where people are thriving and people want to be in this profession?
Well, so certainly making a commitment to crisis intervention team training, making sure that all officers have that training, and that they also have suicide prevention training as well, because suicide is a huge issue right now. The Fort Wayne Police Department has hired master's level social workers to go out and help on the overdose crisis. We're also working on hiring more social workers to help with the crisis intervention team. That would be a huge step forward, to hire master's level social workers that can go out with officers and address those recurring issues. Let's say someone with severe mental health issues that are calling over and over again. That master's level social worker can actually relieve that burden from the officer and help manage that person with that severe mental health issue, so that they're freed up to do other real police work,
right?
Kinds of things. That's huge, and I'm a huge advocate for police social workers. It's actually an emerging field, and I see that as the way going forward for 21st century law enforcement.
And that would presumably include, or particularly domestic situations, disputes?
It could, yes.
It could, yeah.
And also there's a state law that's I think it was passed this last legislative cycle and will be implemented next year. And it's for a new crisis hotline called 988.
Yes.
And so, Barbara Shakanuka is actually a Fort Wayne resident who's working as the equity and diversity officer for that hotline.
And I'm actually on that committee.
There you go.
Terrific.
So, and this is an excellent opportunity to think about how some of the ARPA funds and maybe some of our county funds could be used to create not just a hotline that people may or may not use, but an actual crisis of care, or a crisis response network.
So in the near future, Park Center and or Parkview Behavioral Health will have a mobile response team that can go out and address people with issues of severe mental health issues. So that'll also be helpful as well. It's not up and running yet, but it's in the works.
That makes me so happy to hear, Kevin.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some good things in
Yes.
the pipeline. Kevin, you've already mentioned a couple of your the planks of your platform.
Yes.
So I'm going to expand upon that. Is it possible in the rosy future that could our state legislators help improve the confinement situation through the auspices of the General Assembly? Could they restructure our county governments to function better?
That is a possibility, but that would be up to the legislatures to do that,
Yes.
and we'll have to see if they have that desire going forward. That would be helpful. Certainly, giving county offices more money and more flexibility to address these issues going forward would be really helpful. And certainly there was a study done on the criminal justice system, and they revamped the laws overall. Making sure that we're continually looking at those is really helpful.
One of the things too that I wonder about when it comes to these other bodies of government that could help us actually in local government have a better shot at taking care of some of these issues would be like, in Indianapolis, they have a unified county and city government. And we know that here in Fort Wayne and other cities across the state, so much of the county government is kind of like, I don't know, a good old boys network. And the city is much more nimble and much more having to deal with everyday people's lives in areas that are highly populated and have diversity. And so it's like when they're two separate offices, there's oftentimes just a hang up around how they work together to address issues. Do you ever see in the future Fort Wayne adapting something similar to what Indianapolis has, where like the city and the county work more regularly together?
That's something that would have to be decided by both the city administration and the county administration. I don't know where people stand on those issues. It is something going forward that, you know, when I'm elected, I will make sure that I'm working closely with the Fort Wayne Police Department to address crime issues and mental health issues and other issues. That would really be a good step going forward. Even though we're in the same building together, we don't always talk very well. So, you know, having that good connection to the Fort Wayne Police Department would be something that would be helpful.
Amen.
Kevin, it's just a few days before the actual election day, but there's some time left for campaigning. How do you plan to win this election? Or tell us a little bit about what you and your campaign have already done.
So this has been quite a learning experience for me going forward. I've never run for any office before, so I've learned as I've gone on. I've had great mentorship from Derek Camp from the Democratic Party. He is a great chair. I can't say enough good things about him and the team that he's put forward together. My wife has been a huge help. Jennifer, I can't thank her enough for all the things that she's done and been so supportive. And then one of my campaign helpers, Andrew Bourne, he's just been great. So, you know, we have a robust social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We've gotten ads out on TV now, and we're just really just trying to cover as many bases as we can to get our message out. The debate, I think, was very helpful for me, and it's just been a great experience. I've met a lot of great people, you two including that. So
thank you for running a robust campaign and joining us here today for another progressive political perspectives show. That's a lot of P's. Yeah, I wish you all the best in the campaign.
Yeah, and every viewer who's watching, share this with 2 or 3 of your neighbors. Make sure everyone you know is voting. This is a very important election.
It is.
And don't forget this gentleman's name when you go to see your ballot.
That's right. This is a chance for fundamental change.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.